Starfield's first gameplay showing got a bit of a lukewarm reaction from everyone, as the visual fidelity just didn't impress anyone. But Bethesda's massive space RPG offers so much more than just its graphics. So in today's video, we're gonna take a look at some of the deeper role-playing mechanics in Todd Howard's next adventure, including an all-new survival system that could change everything. First up, Starfield is a culmination of everything that Bethesda has done. Bethesda is easily one of, if not the biggest studios out there in terms of making consistent, high-quality blockbuster hits. Like, literally, no one else can make a role-playing experience that's as expansive and immersive as their games. After all, they've been doing it for over 3 decades at this point, so you'd expect them to be masters of their craft. Now, obviously, they've had a few misses here and there, too. Yep, we're looking at you, Fallout 76. Despite that, it seems like they always find a way to learn from their failures and come out with something better. We mean, even a game like Fallout 76, which had one of the most shambolic launches in history, has now turned into a pretty decent experience. Also, there's this drive within the studio to one-up themselves with each new game. And while sometimes that can result in missteps, like the voiced protagonist in Fallout 4, the results are usually more positive than negative. Oh, and then there's the fact that they're a tightly knit group of developers that have been together for a very long time. So with such little turnover, a ton of experience carries over into every single Bethesda project. Perhaps this is what makes Starfield such an exciting prospect. We mean, it's been a seed in Todd Howard's brilliant mind for over 2 decades, during which he's had time to play around with game mechanics and figure out what would work and what wouldn't. Plus, he's also had plenty of time to really sit down and soak in all the feedback, which there's plenty of, because, well, it's been a while since their last big game. As a result, Starfield will not only incorporate the best features from hits like Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim, and Fallout 4, but it'll also improve them with a fresh coat of paint. Now, Starfield's survival systems also stem from Bethesda's previous work. One of the standout things that we saw in the gameplay reveal for Starfield was the return of the survival system. Fallout fans would instantly recognize the whole eating and drinking stuff to keep going, except that here, it's turned up to 11. Of course, it's not going to be as hard as those hardcore modes in New Vegas or 76, but there's a lot more gameplay depth here. For instance, one of the game's starting skills, gastronomy, lets players craft food and drinks. Oh, and apparently, it also lets you research extra recipes at a lab, which points toward a full-on crafting system for just food. But wait, why'd you even need this stuff in a Bethesda RPG? Like, wouldn't that be a bit antithetical to its mainstream appeal? Well, yes, probably. At the same time though, Todd Howard knows what he's doing, so it's not gonna be as brutal as your run-of-the-mill survival games, where you are basically in a race against time to feed yourself. Besides, food has always been a weird thing in their RPGs. Like, it typically heals you for a few health points, but it's never enough to make any substantial difference. So perhaps this is their way to give some extra love to those loaves of bread. Or these could also just grant temporary buffs and status effects like Fallout 4. That said, hopefully, it's more expansive than just that. But are we getting anything other than just food and drink? Now, trying to juggle between sweet rolls and big old pints of mead is great and everything, but for a game that claims to be so expansive, you've gotta have something more, right? Well, thankfully, Todd and the team have got that covered as well, because yep, the survival system in Starfield goes way deeper. In fact, we're probably even gonna get stuff like temperature, disease, and rest. What does that actually mean though? Like, how does catching an illness even work? If you've played any of the older Bethesda RPGs, you'd know that diseases have been a staple part of their games for a very long time. We mean, even if you go as far back as Oblivion, you had that whole vampirism thing where you'd have to drink some random sleeping dude's blood, or else your skin went all pale and wrinkly. And getting rid of that was a whole quest in and of itself. Besides, even Fallout's got things like radiation poisoning, so we expect these systems in Starfield to be an extension of that, except that now you're in a space setting, and maybe these planets that you're gonna visit harbor foul stuff that could poison you or something. Oh, and speaking speaking of planets, you can bet that Bethesda's taken some inspiration from No Man's Sky here, especially when it comes to atmospheric hazards. For instance, you could be landing on a desert planet where you'd have to either find shade or drink a ton of water to stay cool. Or there's a possibility of toxic rain as well, which is a No Man's Sky staple. Besides, with over 1,000 planets accessible to the player, there's so much room for variation that we wouldn't be surprised if Bethesda adds these things later, even if they're not present at launch. Also, money could play a big role in Starfield. Figuring out the economy within a game is easily one of the hardest things to do. Like, of course, you've got the usual shops that sell you equipment for the money you've earned through quests. But at this point, all of that just feels so monotonous and uninspiring. We mean every game's doing the same thing, and not having other options to spend your dough can be a bit underwhelming. Bethesda games, on the other hand, are anything but underwhelming, so you can bet that Starfield's gonna have a ton of creative ways for you to splash out. In fact, we even saw some of these things during the gameplay trailer. Take housing, for example. In the studio's previous games, especially on the Elder Scrolls side of things, getting a house was a pretty straightforward thing. You went to a town, did some quests to win them over, and then paid the Jarl to buy a property. Here though, things look a bit different. Apparently, Starfield's gonna have a whole banking system where players would be able to deposit money or take out loans. As a matter of fact, one of the character perks lets you start out with a small home on a peaceful moon, but it comes with a 50,000 credit mortgage with one of the banks. Other than that, there's a perk that starts you out with parents, and you can even visit them at their home. The caveat with that one, however, is that 10% of all your income is deducted and sent to them. Besides, who knows? With so many political factions fighting each other, maybe you could be creative with your money and bribe your way through the game as well. So yeah, there's definitely loads to dig into here. Next, we could see some hunting action in Starfield as well. Now, other than the trailer itself, we've also heard some rumors that the game's gonna combine currency and survival in a way that we really haven't seen in any other Bethesda title before. How? Well, for starters, you'd be able to buy exotic foods with unique buffs prepared by gourmet alien chefs. So, you know, your extraterrestrial Gordon Ramsays. On top of that, you could also embark on quests to bring rare meats for them to cook. Like, imagine you walk up to a chef in some fancy restaurant on New Atlantis, and he asks you to kill some weird-looking dinosaur alien. Now, you'd fly over to a planet where those aliens are found and hunt them for their meat. Sounds incredible, no? We mean, of course, this isn't a new concept, as at its core, it's still a simple fetch quest, but it's the immersive seasoning on top that makes Bethesda games so good in the first place. And from the looks of things, Starfield isn't gonna be any different. And finally, when can we expect Starfield to come out? Yes, we know, all this talk of exotic alien meats probably got you drooling, but sadly, you'd have to wait for a while to actually get into the action in Starfield. The game was meant to come out in November this year, but a delay into early 2023 means that we'd have to wait just a bit longer for Todd Howard's big masterpiece. How long? Well, that depends. But judging from how these things go usually, we wouldn't hedge out bets against a March release. But hey, if the performance issues in that gameplay reveal are anything to go by, then we'd say that Bethesda probably needed that extra time to polish their game. So let's just cross our fingers and hope that it's everything that it's hyped up to be. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think that Starfield could win a Game of the Year award in 2023? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.